Welcome to the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the Managing Director of B Squared, and I'm the host of the Sencast, a podcast for special educational needs and disability. Each week, we'll be talking about a different topic within the world of SEND to improve our knowledge, to provide support to professionals working in schools, and to empower parents. My guest this week is Dr. Jill McGarry, a clinical psychologist with over 28 years as a sleep expert. Jill runs Sleep Better Doctor, supporting many people who have sleep problems. She runs training, awareness courses and clinics, all focused on supporting people to sleep. In this episode, we're discussing sleep and the issues neurodiverse individuals and individuals with learning disabilities can have around sleep. The Sencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. And B Squared have been helping schools since 1997. Where we started breaking down the curriculum into smaller steps before the P levels ever existed. And we started off with paper assessment and photocopiable workbooks, and over the years we've kept up with all the changes and used technology to help reduce teacher workload, improve outcomes for pupils, and improve the impact and effectiveness and efficiency of schools around assessment. Connecting Steps, our assessment software, is our biggest product. It can be used to assess a wide range of students from the most complex to young people working towards independence, and it can also support every pupil in primary schools. And don't forget Eversense, our evidence for learning and parental communication tool. And then we have this podcast, and we also have our Sencast sessions, our online CPD around SEND. There's a lot going on in B Squared. Visit the B Squared website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through our products and how they can help you. And as always, let's get on with the podcast. In this week's show, we're discussing sleep and the issues neurodiverse individuals and individuals with learning disabilities can have around sleep. My guest this week is Dr. Jill McGarry, a clinical psychologist with over 28 years experience all around sleep, and she is a sleep expert. Jill runs Sleep Better Doctor, and she runs training, awareness courses and clinics all focused on supporting people to sleep. Jill has attended a ridiculous number of training programs around sleep, more than I thought ever possibly could exist, and she is also a member of the British Sleep Society. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Oh my gosh, thank you very much. It's great to be here, and great to be here face to face.
It's nice face to face.
It's just lovely, yeah.
I always used to struggle to sleep when I was young. It was always several hours between going to bed and falling asleep. Sometimes I enjoyed my thoughts, but other times I got anxious about not being able to fall asleep. I always wanted that next day to come. Over time, I've learned ways to help me get sleep, but I never knew it was linked to my neurodiversity.
Yeah, that was so common. And sometimes people don't think you can learn ways to do things differently. So I'm really pleased, Dale, you've found some solutions that work for you, because some people just think they have to struggle and there's nothing they can do. And they don't, sometimes as kids and young adults, they don't even know that it's different for other people. So it's a bit like even their diagnosis. They assume, like we all do, we assume everybody's the same as us. I often think it's a bit like being colourblind. You know, you think everybody else sees things in the same, fewer colours. And it's the same with sleep. When you don't get sleep, you think everybody else is struggling with sleep because you don't talk about it, do you? Everybody just says, oh, did you have a good night's sleep? And you don't know what good means. You might think you've had a good night compared to the night before, but that doesn't mean it is actually good to make you feel recovered and refreshed. So yeah, it is a fascinating difficulty when you put it along with autism and other neurodiversity issues, that the two combined together can be really tough.
And I remember my parents going, just go to sleep. And it's just like, give me the recipe.
Yeah.
Give me the recipe of what are the 4 steps I need to do to get to sleep? Because I don't know what they are. And I'd lie in bed and it's probably the ADHD part of me, just easily distracted by something in the room, something out the window, a noise, or just my own thoughts.
Yeah. And that's hard for parents, isn't it? Because often a parent might find it easy to go to sleep, and it's incredibly unhelpful to just say you can do it, and I just go off to sleep. That is no use to anybody. So unlike other problems, people can usually point you in the right direction because they've perhaps had that experience to some degree. But if you're a good sleeper, and you just don't know how you do it. It's like it's magic, isn't it? And it just happens. So they don't even know how to tell you to do it differently or to use different strategies. So we're really lucky that today, in the last 10 years, we are researching sleep like tons. There's so much more coming out around what we can do around sleep. We've got clever kit that we can put on our heads. So we now know what's happening in our brains so we can get people to sleep better. And we know what doesn't look good to recover and feel refreshed the next day. And we know what does look good. So, and now we're even getting more sophisticated in the fact that we can say, for this client group, they will struggle in this way, and this is what might help them, because we're able to refine that research. You know, the longer we're researching, the more we get some great answers, because we can put the data together with big numbers of people from different groups.
But I also like the fact that we are having more conversations around how our brains are different. And you see things like on social media where it's like a little short video of me asking my wife what she's thinking about and she says nothing. And you're like, no, you can never, it's like my mind is empty. It's like, no, that's not possible. And you realize you have these people whose minds are running and flat out, thinking about everything, and you have voices going on in your head. And the next person, in my opinion, has tumbleweed going on in their head. And there is literally nothing. There's no voice. It's quiet. It's peaceful. And we have these two people thinking everyone's the same as them.
Yeah.
But they're not.
No, and we're a continuum. There are some people, when I work with some people with autism, they talk about having like two brains, like one part of the brain doing the thinking and one part of the brain doing the running, almost like there's two things going on at the same time. And it's really clever, isn't it, that you can do two things at once. And other people can't even understand that being possible.
No.
And then there are those, and it is very few people can think of nothing. So if your wife can do that, then she is an amazing person. Because even some of the top yogis say they really struggle to do that. So even if you went to see a Buddha monk in Thailand or, you know, somewhere in that region that had been studying virtually for all of their life, they would say they have moments where there is nothing going on in the brain, but that's because they've really worked hard at calming the mind down. But it doesn't happen often. And we have glimpses if you work at it when that does happen. But for most people, we're mentalizing all the time. You know, anybody that says they've got a voice in their head, I'm like, yeah, it's probably your voice because you talk to yourself. It's not unusual. And that's hard, isn't it? Because then it gets mixed up with mental health and which people have got other voices in their head and stuff like that. But we all have a voice in our head. And yeah.
Not everyone does. It's like, again, it's the same as I was asking my daughter is when you read. So if you're thinking you're reading a book silently, are you hearing the words in your head? Are you seeing like a movie in your head? So when I'm reading, I'm kind of watching it and imagining it going on. Especially if I'm watching some film about, I don't know, this, whatever, I can kind of, so if I watch Harry Potter and then read the book, I'm seeing Daniel Radcliffe, I'm seeing all of them doing it. Yeah, I'm doing all whatever I'm reading about, it's happening in my head, I can see it. My daughter, nothing. And that's why she doesn't like reading.
Yeah, because there's no imagination alongside it.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes it dull and...
So that's why she won't read. So have you not got this in your head? She's looking at me as if I have a banana growing out of my head going, what?
Yeah.
So you read the book? She went, yeah. What's happening in your head? And she's like, I read the book. Are you seeing it? She's like, they're words. What do you mean seeing it? There's that realization again of just having those conversations around, do you hear voices in your head? Do you hear your own thoughts?
Yeah.
When you're reading, are you seeing things or are you not? Helps you kind of see how dissimilar your brain is to your child.
Yeah, and to everybody else around you. And I don't think we do enough of that conversation, do we? You know, I think we're a very visual being, so we're often comparing ourselves, what we look like and how we move in a different way or whatever, but we never actually ask the questions. And yet we're a really clever beast that has got this beautiful thing of being able to talk to each other, but we never ask those interesting questions. And I've never asked that with my girls. So yeah, I'm feeling quite jealous that you now know that.
But a good one is because you do talks, you deliver presentations.
Yeah.
So you do PowerPoints, yeah?
Yeah. Sometimes I try and freely a bit. Sometimes if I've only got 20 minutes, then there's not enough time to get the slides up. But yeah, I do a bit of both.
So if you're going to deliver a presentation with PowerPoint and you need to practice, do you open up PowerPoint, look at it, and do you practice it in your head? So do you stand inside your head and deliver it, or do you have to physically say it to practice it?
I think I do a bit of both. I will practice it in my head, saying the words, imagining what it says on the slides without looking at it, but knowing that I visually have got the image of what maybe those 4 points were or that picture. So like one of my slides is the 5 pillows of sleep instead of the 5 pillars of sleep. So there's 4 pillows, five pillows. No,
Love
4,
it.
sorry. And I could tell you what those are. Sorry, there are 5. I don't know why I've forgotten. But I would visualize that picture and then say the words that go along with it. So I don't know, that's a little bit of a combo, isn't it?
So there are people who will have to go and physically practice it in the real world.
Yeah.
So they will have to bring up the slide and then say it. Whereas I can almost picture myself standing in a lecture and going, right, so I'd say, oh, actually, no. And it doesn't, and I can just redo it. But so all those sorts of things I've learned that how different we all are.
Yeah.
So when I'm saying to my daughter, just.
It's not a just.
There is never a just.
No. And it is really hard for people that don't have imagination or struggle with imagining things. Then asking them to just do it is a bit like asking somebody to just sleep. It just, or just paint a picture. Just do those skills or just sing a song. Oh my God, nobody could ask me to just sing a song because it wouldn't be a song. It would sound like a screech.
I'm with you on that one as well. So for me growing up, as I said, it was like, and I think I've heard a lot that my brain was just keeping going.
Yeah.
And partly that is my ADHD, but I think someone told me there is a whole chemical change throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I believe there is a chemical that starts getting released for most people, but it doesn't happen for everyone.
So that's really clever. And I think that they haven't told you the full story. So there's more to it. There are 2 chemicals that are happening, and it's called the 2-process model. And it gets complicated. So I work with lots of people with learning disabilities and in special schools and just generally in life. I like to use the simpler way of describing things. And I think I am quite pictorial, like I was saying a minute ago. So I like to think of it a bit like the cistern and the loo. So the sleep is a bit like that. So throughout the day, a chemical will be building up in the back of the loo, like water would build up after you've just flushed it. So say you've just had a sleep, it's just like you've flushed the loo. And when you wake up, a chemical then begins to build up called adenosine, and it's filling in that water tank. And then you have another chemical called melatonin. It might be the melatonin that you've heard of there, isn't it? And that's actually more like the flush handle. And it needs as much melatonin building up in that flush handle as possible for a part of the brain called the supercharismatic nuclei. And I say it like that because it sounds like supercalifragilistic. Expialidocious. It doesn't have that ending on it. But everybody shortens it to SCN, which is easier. And then the SCN knows, because of the daylight outside, that to use that melatonin that's built up through the day to start the action of that adenosine flushing into the brain, which is the loo basin. Does that make sense?
Yes, it's roughly, yes. It was that sort of thing. As that melatonin gets to that point, it triggers you're going to bed. And it's your body going, oh, I'm tired. It helps you fall asleep.
Definitely. Uber so, we learned this, I'd say, I'm going to get my dates wrong, probably about 15 years ago. Because when people used to get skin cancer, we used to remove their eyeballs to get rid of the cancer. And what they began to then realise when they got clever at doing that actually these people could then not fall asleep. So we realised that something was happening through the optic nerve. So even though the cones and rods that help you see weren't working, that optic nerve was letting something else in that was uber important for our sleep, that sets you off to sleep. And now what we've done, because that set off a whole load of research that taught us that, the lux from the light outside goes into that optic nerve and is collected in the pineal gland in the brain as melatonin. It gets converted to melatonin and it's stored there till the SCN needs to release it for sleep at night. And, or like I said, it's like the flush handle that's then set into action. The melatonin washes into to set the system off.
And I think the person who told me is that system doesn't always work.
Perfect. Yes.
So for neurodiverse, often that flush never happens.
Yes. Or takes a lot longer. Like when I work with people with autism, when I'm at the autism chair that we both work at, Dale, I will have like a clinic that I run and it's 20 minutes and each probably 2 out of 3 people have got a problem with that flush handle. And we're constantly talking about melatonin and how to get that melatonin into their body. For people with autism, they are very lucky. They can go to their GP if they're the ages between, I think it's 3 and 19, to get a tablet of melatonin. It's so well known. The NHS only gives tablets when it's well and truly known that something works. So you're allowed to have melatonin if you've got autism or if you're over 65, I think it is. Because again, that optic nerve isn't working very well for people that are older and they can't make melatonin the same. So they need melatonin quite often as well. So those 2 groups. But why, when you're 19 and you've got autism, you don't need it? It's not true. It's just that there hasn't been enough research in that older client group yet for the NHS to say, oh yeah, and we need to carry on giving it. So some GPs are great and they'll have prescribed it when they were a child, realise it works wonders. And it doesn't always work wonders for everybody. It can be really helpful though. I don't want to make it to be a magic pill, but it can make a difference. And therefore they want to use it beyond the ages of 90. And their GP's great and they'll give it. Other people have to campaign for it. So there's a few of us that are sleep consultants that are fighting and are wanting to help the next lot of nice guidance around sleep and autism so it doesn't have an age limit because nobody's brain changes that much on their 19th birthday.
So for me, as I was saying, I struggled to sleep. And I think it was when that's the thing, I was trying to work this out. I left secondary school, which I hated.
Mm-hmm.
I started college and I got a job.
Okay.
All within a couple of months of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And when I got a job, I was able to buy things I wanted and have my room how I wanted.
Mm.
So I don't know if it was not being at secondary school and not being stressed by it
Mm-hmm.
and not worrying so much. I was happier.
Yeah.
Or I was able to set my room up how I wanted and adjust things to go, that's helping me sleep. So I can't work out which, or is it both?
Oh, I think it's a bit of both, but I love that well, you said it first, but that second one you just last mentioned, because the research that's come out last year, it wasn't we, somebody else did it, but the world of sleep researchers did it and they worked out, they asked people that were autistic, that were good sleepers, what do you do and that helps you go to sleep or you think might help you go to sleep? It's one of the things, like you said, you adjusted. And they asked those that were poor sleepers what they do and what they think might help. And what they noticed were those that were good sleepers, what they do is they create a nest at night time with all the things they want to have around them. So I think the word that people with autism came up with, making a nest, having a nest is a great phrase for it, isn't it? You know, getting cozy with those things that are important to you around you. And that's the opposite from normal sleep guidance we would give to the general population. So if somebody's got insomnia, so not just getting off to sleep problems, but staying asleep problems, we would often say, make your bedroom only as a place to sleep and nothing else. So it's quite the opposite to that though, isn't it? For people with autism, we're actually saying to them now, only like in the last year, no, get your nest, make it as not cozy, but as useful to you. And so I think you were doing that really well, Dale.
So I don't know, part of my analytical brain, but I literally be sitting there going, right, what is attracting my attention? And basically it would be light sources. So it was my curtains were closed.
Yep.
But I had light coming in from under the door. So I got one of those draft excluders and put it near the door, not to block the draft, but to stop that line of light coming in. And basically I'd sit there and go, and I went, oh, that's annoying me. And I basically would end up getting like electrical tape and covering up LEDs of anything in my room.
Yeah.
But basically,
you were light sensitive to it. Yeah.
And it was making it that blank canvas. But then what happened is I then started seeking things.
Yeah.
So then I put music on, but it had to be relaxing, not too loud. I was actually listening to it, enjoying it, but not too quiet. I was struggling to hear it.
Yeah.
It's like a Goldilocks zone.
Yeah. It's like
where-
musicians need that Goldilocks zone. They can't enjoy music if it's too like what they like or what they play, because then they start criticizing it. Yeah, so it's similar.
So I was like, I need to be able to follow it, but not really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, in my head, it's like a sleeping fidget that it occupied that part of my brain enough that you're like, you bit there, follow the music. The rest was going to go to sleep. Yeah. And that worked.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, so it's a bit like mindfulness. I don't know if you've heard of that, Dale, that lots of people use mindfulness so that they're in control of their brain rather than brain doing whatever it fancies doing. And that's what I think of mindfulness as. It's just like going to the gym for the brain, so that you can run when you need to run for the bus in your brain. And when you need to relax, you can do it. But you can't just suddenly do it. You need to train it. You need to practice mindfulness for quite a long time before it works. So I think you were probably doing some mindfulness stuff without realizing. But you just learned how to listen to yourself really well, didn't you? Yeah. So lots of times when I'm working with people, I try and help them really tune into themselves, because we're all individuals. And I think there's loads of advice around sleep out there that is very generic, and I don't think that's helpful. I think we really have to focus on what individuals need, especially when we've got other needs that need to be supported. But I love what you said about blocking out the light, because I often say to families and individuals, there are 4 parts that make up sleep hygiene and basic sleep advice. Whereas actually, if you were to go out in the shops today, there'd be tons out there. I mean, I was just in a very well-known shop that sells lots of products today, and they were selling lots of different things like pillow sprays and tablets for sleep. And nobody out there in the general population knows what works and what doesn't. So quite a few of us are trying to make it really simple so that we know what to do rather than just buy stuff for the sake of it. So I like the term sleep hygiene because I want people to think of it as a bit like dental hygiene and hand hygiene. So when you've got a dental problem, you still brush your teeth, you still floss, you still eat food that's good for it, as well as having the treatment. And the same for hand hygiene. You don't stop washing your hands and drying your hands effectively just because you've got a tummy bug. Whereas I think what people do with sleep is they throw out some good things when they're trying to fix it, and they don't know what those good things are, do they? No. And again, I try and make it as simple as possible. So I say there are 4, possibly 5, if you wanted to stretch it, things that would be great for everybody to try and focus on just to have good sleep hygiene. And the first one is always light, getting the light right. But it's not just the light at night. So you did a fab job, didn't you, of making sure your blinds worked, that little gap under the door was right. But on top of that, getting the light during the morning, it can be really important, because that melatonin we were talking about earlier, we get the best amount of lux light in the morning to turn it to melatonin. If we do it after lunchtime, like after 2, maybe 4 o'clock, it's even less of the good stuff. It's a bit like, like in the Nordic countries where it's dark for a lot of the summer, they don't get enough light. So they use a lux light to get enough light for them to be able to sleep and not to suffer from depression, because not getting enough light actually makes you depressed as well. So we need to get light in them. So light's not just what you do in bed. The light part of sleep hygiene is about what you do during the day as well. So it's about getting enough of that. For the average person, it's 20 minutes. But for somebody with autism, we think it might be as much as 4 hours for some people. It might be 2 hours for somebody else. So I will actually work with them about trying to work out what it is, how much they need. And if they can't do it naturally, you can't get out for 4 hours in the morning, but they need it, we will purchase, or I'll help them purchase a lux lamp that can give them that extra if they don't want to use the tablets. And then we might even think about food. But we would only do that if their flush handle isn't working. So if they can get off to sleep fine, I don't worry about that melatonin. Their brain and their optic nerve is doing what it needs to. It's just for something like 80% of people with autism, that optic nerve, we don't know if it's the optic nerve that's not working properly or parts of the brain that aren't able to synthesize the light as efficiently as in other people to make the melatonin that gets the sleep. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you said lux lamp. Is that like a sad lamp?
Yeah, so it's a sad lamp, but a sad lamp with a certain lux factor. So 10,000 lux it needs to have.
So anyone listening, do you know what I mean by sad? And what's a lux? So a sad, it sounds like a sad lamp. It's seasonal affectiveness disorder.
Yeah, seasonal affective disorder.
So that is, it's basically, it's a light which is roughly replicating sunlight. So when you're in the winter, and there are people who kind of, everyone's mood drops, which is, I think, natural, but there are those it drops too far.
Yep.
So you have this lamp on and it's giving you that sense of light and...
Yeah. And so we're beginning to use it for shift people as well, on shift work, because they don't get enough light. And they use it tons in the Nordic countries. They even have them in conservatories. So the whole family has at breakfast time like a shower of that light en masse. So in some countries, this would not be an odd conversation. They'd all know what a Lux lamp is because they'd buy it every year. Do you know what I mean? It'd be on the shelves for them.
Wow.
Whereas in England, it's not the case, is it?
So the Lux lamp is sad, but with...
10,000 lux it has to be to get the best.
So that the lux, I'm guessing it's a frequency. Is it a frequent light frequency?
Yeah. It's a bit more complicated, and I don't even want to talk about it because I don't even know it myself. So I don't want to say the wrong stuff, Dale. I don't go that technical.
Yeah, I'm literally going. I think I know roughly what it is because, like, warm light, cold light. It's the sun zone light.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
the morning light.
Yeah.
That's useful.
So I can literally, which tangent do I go off right now? But so I'm going to stick with, let's go back to pillars. I'll come back to the not flashing melatonin later. Let's go. So light was the first one.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
So the next one is heat. So often people go, yeah, I know I need to have a bath at night so it warms my body up. But then I hear people say, oh, I've heard the evidence that says it needs to be cold at night. But I often say that it's about what you do during the day as much as what you do at night. So in the morning, if you're getting up, you'd want to be super warm. And they go, oh my God, this is so confusing now, Jill. What do I do? When do I do it? And I say, just remember what it was like when we were cavemen and cavewomen, because our bodies are still ancient. We might live in a very complicated, ITE, invented world, but our bodies have not changed much at all. So when we were cavemen and cavewomen, in the morning, the sun came up and we got warmer. So we want our bodies to be warmer in the morning. So if you've got a teenager that doesn't want to get out of bed, naturally they don't want to. So you want to leave them in bed as long as possible because that is important to get as much sleep as possible. And it is natural that they get up later. But when you definitely need them to get out of bed, to get to school or college or whatever, throw a blanket on them, whack up the heating because the body will do a little bit of that, I need to get out of bed because I'm warm now. That they might not be getting if the house is cold. So that's relevant in the winter as well, isn't it? And then people around the heat stuff also say, well, Jill, why would you have a bath then if you want to be cool at night? And that's because if you have a nice warm bath, when you get out of it, you feel that rush of the cold air around you. So your skin suddenly feels cold. So it sends a message to your brain that it's cooler. And then probably 1-2 hours later, your internal organs start cooling down at a faster rate than they would have done if you'd have just gone into a cool room. So that immediate getting out of a warm bath into a cold room can set off that sleepiness, cold feel that your body needs. And again, that's what would happen at night when we were cavemen and cavewomen. The sun would go down and we would feel really cold and we'd have to get warm somehow, underneath those sheepskins.
The thing is, I do find my wife calls me her pocket radiator because I kind of recharge overnight and I wake up in the morning and I am hot. I am literally, everyone who knows me just sees me in a T-shirt.
Right.
January, I'll still be in a T-shirt. I can go outside and I'll be in a T-shirt.
Oh, gosh.
But as the day goes on, I slowly run out of heat. So one of my signs I now recognise is I need to go to bed is when I'm starting to get cold, it's go to bed. And I'm now realising that's my body's natural, that's the cycle.
Yeah.
But I don't remember having that when I was young.
Maybe you weren't aware of it as much. Maybe there was so much going on. When you're learning and you're young, there's so much going on, isn't there? And when you're a teenager, I don't know if you've heard of that, but your brain starts pruning a little. So perhaps you've had enough pruning for you to now be aware of things that you weren't before. Or maybe your body has changed, that it does go more through a rhythm of the day. And our bodies go through a rhythm of the day all the time. I mean, one of my favourite facts, and I think I want to do a TED talk on this, is that our bodies have clocks. So we only have a 24-hour clock body because of the sunlight. So if we put people in a cave, we would actually run on a 25-hour clock. So the studies have been done for us. So we need that sunlight to reset our clock every day. So that's why that SCN that I was saying before, getting that light into the eyes not only creates the melatonin, but it gives that message, okay, I'm out of sync, I need a little bit more. But that SCN is like a grandfather clock, or a master clock. For other body parts have clocks. And people go, Jill, you're a bit wacky now. I don't believe you. What are you going on about? And I say, no, it's absolutely true. There is tons of evidence out there. So we're more likely to have a heart attack from 2 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock, I think it is. Women are more likely to have babies in the morning. And again, evolutionary, that made sense between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock. So midwives will go, it is crazy busy always between those hours. And it made sense, didn't it? Because early in the morning, the whole of the clan's around. So they'd all be there to help and support while somebody's giving birth. Nobody's as vulnerable. You wouldn't want to be doing it on your own while everybody's out hunting and gathering. So it made complete sense that and the light was up, it was coming up. So you'd be able to see what you were doing and everybody else would be able to see to help you. So that made sense. And people go, I think I might begin to believe you. And then there's one bit of fact that I tell everybody that they go, okay, you've got me. And that is when you go to sleep, your bladder doesn't have a clock. It has a valve. And when it's full, it needs to go. No matter what time it is, it goes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't drink, it doesn't go at all in the night. Perhaps as you get older, that's a little bit more dodgy. That valve doesn't work as well when you get older. But if you think about your bowel, how many people go to have a poo in the night? Only if you've got a stomach bug do you go for a poo in the night. Is that the case for you, Dale? It's definitely the case for me. And that means, well, it's not that means, but we know that our bowel has a clock and it knows not to work when we're asleep.
So I will show you, I'll find a video after we've recorded about clocks and bees. I don't know if you know that one.
No.
There's a whole thing around clocks and bees that they can tell the time. You feed them at certain times and they know. So people are going, oh yeah, but what about? So they removed light. And then what about? They change all these factors. And they even transported the same bees to different time zones and all of this. And they always came out at the correct time.
Oh,
it's
that's
really,
spooky,
really
isn't it?
interesting.
Yeah, but you know what? We do know this is the case. I don't know why we don't believe it. Because if we think about women, they have we call the 24-hour clock the circadian clock, whereas women go through a 28-day clock.
Yes.
So our bodies have clocks. How would it do that? How would it know when 28 days have passed for you to shed, to start again in the reproductive process? So we kind of instinctively know it, but we haven't thought it through enough to know it's real. Do you know what I mean? If that makes sense. But to know it happens for bees, I love new information, Dale.
It's great. It's great. But I think the whole thing about creating a nest, as again, it was around that sort of time, I worked at IKEA. So I bought myself a double bed. So I had a nicer bed. I'm 6'3", so having a bigger bed, comfier. And I had a double duvet, and I like duvet between my legs. I don't like my knees touching each other. And I was able to buy more pillows. So basically, it was like, I made my bed comfier.
Yeah. Sounds like you got a good position in bed as well, so that you could sleep without any pain or itchiness and stuff.
My old bed, I think, was the same bed from when I was a child, and it had a footboard and a headboard that I could touch. If I not even tiptoeing, my head would be at one end and my feet would be touching the other. Yeah. So at that point, moving to a comfier bed would have really been part of that nest process as well.
Yeah, and you're not the only one. So it doesn't fit with the 4 parts of sleep hygiene. But when you have people that are struggling like you were, then honing into what works and what doesn't. So sometimes, for going back to that bit about being for women and their menstrual cycle, for women, they go through different amounts of heat that they give off at night. So sometimes in their menstrual cycle, they don't mind sleeping with their partner. And if you're really hot at night, your wife might even find this, that sometimes in her cycle, she might not be able to sleep in the same bed as you and because you're just too hot. And people go, oh, is that okay then? Because people just assume we should always sleep next to our partner and there must be something wrong with your relationship if you don't. But actually, if you're just too hot, that's okay. So I often work with people with really knowing what's happening for their body. And if somebody asks you to keep a sleep diary and they ask you to keep it for a week and not for longer, they ain't a great sleep psychologist or a sleep coach. You need that data over more than a month to begin to work out what's happening for that individual. And it's a very human man-made thing that we sleep with our partner. If you look at the fact that we're very similar to primates, so if you look at what gorillas do and apes do and chimpanzees do, nobody sleeps with their partner. They don't have their arms around them and cuddle together in that spoon that we so often hear people talk about. They sleep on their own because all primates know sleeping's really important and they just get it. Whereas we have created this thing where we have beds. So I've just done a piece of work with IKEA in Warrington, and it's the year of sleep for IKEA. It's their project, and teaching them that actually it's okay to have single beds, and it's good. And they've gone, do you know what? Actually, it's common in Sweden. They often sleep in 2 separate beds. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. But that's where IKEA comes from as well. So it's quite interesting, isn't it, that we just assume that. But if you want a double bed for yourself or a king size bed, oh my gosh, yeah, the more comfortable you can be, the better, definitely.
I'm not going to go off on an IKEA tangent, even though I want to. Even though I want to. But yeah, that hot thing is, I like a cold room, but I want to be snuggled warm under my duvet.
Yeah.
So again, as you said, it's finding what it is that you want and hoping that the person in the room is also wanting the same thing.
Yeah, and we're really clever today, aren't we? We've got like beds with single mattresses on, and you can have duvets that are 2 different togs on each side. There's loads of clever things that we can do these days. And some people like the window open and other people like it closed.
Always open. Okay, so what's number 3?
So number 3 is about routine. So setting a routine is really important. So everybody goes, okay, so what time do I need to go to bed at? And I go, no, it's like all the other sleep hygiene. It's what you do in the morning at the start of the day, not the end of the day that we need to think of first. So I always say, when do you feel most refreshed? Is it first thing in the morning? Are you a morning person or like a lark, like you would describe people? So if that's the case, then yeah, you might want to be thinking about setting your time to be early in the day, whereas you're just shaking your head there. So you're an owl. So you like to stay up late and get up late. So I'm an owl as well. So I set my clock. Now I don't work in the NHS to be 8 o'clock. It used to be 6:30 and I didn't like it. But I had 2 young girls. I had a husband that worked away and we had to get out. I needed to get one to before school club, then one to the school bus stop and then on to work. And the NHS starts at 8:30 for office staff. It's even earlier for shift workers in the NHS. So my day started too early. So I'd try and make it as late as possible by making the lunches the night before. Clothes were laid out. And us 3 girls, my girls will tell you, we could get out of the house in 10 minutes. We didn't talk to each other because we're all owls. There was no need for that because we're all shattered and we don't want to get up.
That literally, the fact you've all managed to get out, that's it. I'm that sort of person. If I have to get up early, don't talk to me.
Yeah.
Do not talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm up. I'm doing the things you've asked. Do not talk to me. Talk to me in about 2 hours. I will be ready to be talked to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my eldest has got great stories and her friends, when she talks to me, they always remember me chasing the bus. So we might not actually get Sammy to the right bus stop. We might have to chase to the next 2. And they'd be waving, come on.
You can do it.
So it's okay to embrace it because I think we live in a very larkish world. Everybody seems to think we should get up early in the morning. And those of us that don't and don't want to, that it's not okay. Whereas I'm a bit of a controversial person. So I don't mind going against the grain. So I didn't mind having people wave at me at a bus stop. But I think some other people worry about that they can't get up early in the morning. But you really have to tune into who you are. And although we have to do some things that we can't help, like getting up too early, trying to do it within your realm is best. So you set the getting up time that suits you as much as possible. Some people actually go and change their job. So one guy I worked with was an electrician and he had to get up out of the house at 5 o'clock and he was an owl and he had some other sleep issues. And in the end, after we'd worked through loads of other stuff, he went, do you know what, Jill, I'm just going to change my job. I don't actually need this job. My sleep's too important to me. I'm going to have a job that starts earlier in the day. So there are some things that can be adjusted. Like I don't work in the NHS now and I get up later. So you set the morning time for what suits you and then you work out how much gives you good sleep and then you set your evening time. So some people go, I don't know what gives me good sleep. So I say, well, when do you feel rested? So this idea that we should all get 8 hours sleep is a load of baloney. I'm not the same height as you, Dale. We're quite the opposite, aren't we?
Sitting down, we're quite similar, but as soon as I stand up, it's all going to change.
Yeah, definitely. And sleep's exactly the same. So some people need 6 hours, some people need 9, and 8 doesn't sit perfectly in the middle for everybody. So you just need to work out what you need to feel rested. And so people go, I don't know what that is. And I say, well, perhaps it might be when you're on holiday and you don't have any pressures to get up or to go to bed, or a weekend, you might work out. If you're not catching up on the week's poor sleep, you might be able to work it out. Most people can. But if your sleep is beyond less than 6 or over 9, then you might think, oh, actually, I've got a bigger problem that needs to be looked at.
So with the routine, it's going to bring back that melatonin flushing. Because where you don't have that flushing,
yeah,
I've heard or read that that's when that evening routine you can kind of synthesize.
Yeah.
But you're tricking your body. You're literally giving it, I know you haven't got that, but if we do this, this, and this, you think you'll...
Yes.
So that evening routine becomes really important.
Hugely so. Yeah. So that fits in with the routine as well. Yeah. Trying to set it so your brain is on autopilot for going to sleep. It doesn't even need to think about it, because actually for sleep, we don't want to be doing too much thinking. So actually for your brain to just naturally know that time is coming can make a big difference to it. And then amazingly, when we've looked at the waves of sleep at night, you wake up at a better time. So you don't feel as lethargic or what would the word be for it? You just don't want to get up. You're like an angst at getting out of bed. If you've got a nice, healthy, go to bed time and get up time that's a nice routine. So your brain, because it likes routine, all your body parts have clocks. If you can have a nice, steady clock, it will begin to help you in the morning to get up as well as get off to sleep. So both of those can benefit from a routine.
And with that routine, and I think it's one of the things I think I've stumbled on a few things by luck or chance. But I think it's that kind of that stimulus going in. You kind of want to reduce that stimulus. If your children likes playing games, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if you want them to sleep, you've probably got you need a couple of hours from them playing that intense game to getting into bed or falling asleep. You've got to wind that brain down.
Yeah.
So for us, they would go to bed, didn't necessarily have to fall asleep.
Yeah.
But it was being in bed with a book, but it's doing a low intense or less intense activity that helped them go, I'm getting ready to bed, I'm relaxing, I'm reading.
Yeah. Lulling them off is a lovely phrase for it, isn't it? Yeah. So that is really helpful, apart from if you've got autism. So what you've spoke about is having like a fidget spinner and you've had music in the background, because you need your brain to still be working on something. So for some people, that lulling doesn't always work, or they need something more intense. So we will work with people that have got autism and their parents to work out, actually, are those video games useful to them? You know, does it help slow them down? Because some games are helpful if it means you've distracted your brain and lots of other things aren't whirring around. So for some people, actually, those video games might be useful for them to get off to sleep.
Is that all video games, or is it certain video games?
Yeah, it'll be certain ones.
See, we haven't just said play Fortnite till it's bedtime.
No.
It's maybe step off Fortnite into Minecraft or Animal Crossing.
Yeah, or SimCity, is it?
SimCity.
Yeah.
A non-multiplayer, non-competitive game.
Non-multiplayer is a beautiful phrase for it, Dale, because I think that social interaction makes it worse. So I often talk about social media being really bad for your sleep. And people say, oh yeah, it's that blue light, so I'll put a filter on my kid. It's not about the blue light. It's about the fact they're addictive. And I think if you have a multiplayer, you're more addicted because you've got that social interaction, haven't you? You've got other people on it. Shall I come off when they haven't said goodbye yet? And all of that. So doing it a game that's more relaxing as well as not being multiplayer as like a double whammy of being effectively useful. But even if you're doing things on social media, like, I don't know, being on Facebook, or adults sometimes talk to me about being on LinkedIn, and I say it's the addictiveness. You know, you think you're going to be on 5 minutes and just check it for the next 5 minutes. You'll find you're on it for 2 hours. So I say, don't do those things in bed. So even if somebody's going to go on their video games in their bedroom, if they've got autism and they're thinking that's useful to them, don't do it in bed, sit on a chair. And then when you stop doing it, you time yourself, you stop it, then you get into bed. So you only have a bed for sleeping. So even if it's in the same bedroom, you wouldn't be doing it in bed.
Definitely.
Yeah, does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And that's number 3. So what's number 4?
So number 4 is all about nutrients. So it's less useful for kids because some of the things I will talk about is alcohol. So hopefully I want to reduce it in the evening. Yeah, alcohol just wrecks sleep. And people go, it doesn't, because I do get off to sleep quicker sometimes, they say, and I do seem to sleep longer. And I go, you might think you're asleep. We call it a thing called sleep architecture, gets ruined when you've had alcohol. So what I mean by that, and the GP called Michael Mosley that died in the summer, he came up with a great term that sleep's a bit like a seal doing a deep dive. And we don't just go through one dive in the night. We go through 4 or 5, depending on how good our sleep is. And each one of those dives is made up of 4 components. So people will talk about the sleep cycle and perhaps REM sleep. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Rapid eye movement. So that's the last stage in one of the deep dives. So when you go off to sleep, you go through a thing called N1, and that's when your melatonin kicks in. So that it sets you off to sleep. So you might feel like you're falling off a cliff or off a curb, that kind of feeling of dropping off to sleep is what they call it. And then there's N2, which is light sleep. So you might be woken up by things that are around you. And then you go into deep sleep, which is like the seal hitting not hitting, but being close to the seabed. Because if it hit it, that wouldn't be great, would it? And then you come back up to have your REM sleep. And you do that kind of dive 4 times in the night. Whereas if you have alcohol, it's like the seal doesn't even bother diving. It just kind of floats just beneath the water.
I'm now picturing a drunk seal going,
yes,
bubbles or something, and just spinning around in a circle on the surface.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm going to borrow that, Dale. Is that all right?
Yes. But literally going, yeah, that's exactly it. I'm not going to go down there. I'm just going to, spin in a circle.
Yeah. So that's what happens with alcohol. So it's not useful because each of those stages, especially the deep bit, is really useful because that's when our muscles repair, our neurotransmitters repair, our memory begins to be refreshed. And then in the REM sleep, the bit close to the surface that you're coming back up, almost to get another gasp of air, is when we do our dreaming, our REM sleep. And that's when we work through things emotionally for the day. So you need all of those stages. So you don't actually do much if you're just swimming around the surface, blowing bubbles as you described it, Dale. Yeah, and you need to do it.
And the thing is, a drunk seal you can really picture because you see them on the internet. Yes, definitely picturing that. Okay, so kind of we covered. Is that all 4?
Yeah, that's all 4. But sometimes people add in sound as well.
See, that was going to one of the things I was going to go into. So I had a pitch black room and I had that music at that level. Whereas my daughter has a fan on, giving that white noise and sound, and a galaxy lamp. And my other daughter has one of the new C lamps, which is like a cube thing you can get. So that is literally the opposite of what I want. I want a really blank sensory canvas, I think is Joanna Grace called it, which I then put music into, and then I can just listen to the music. Whereas my daughter is using a fan to block out noises, but like me making the room pitch black. It's setting the auditory tone of the room. But then filling her room with light, which sounds like the worst thing in the world to me, but it's obviously relaxing for her.
Yeah. So it's that bit about working out what works for everybody differently. When I had my second daughter, she's not a child anymore. She's off at uni. But when I was pregnant with her, I just loved music. I played it all the time. I even played it in the bedroom at night. That was the most bizarre thing. So I don't know whether I believe in nature or nurture, because when she was born and when she could make choices, she played music in her bedroom all night long. I was like, oh my God, this. And she did when she was younger. She used to love dancing. I mean, she's not a dancer. She's not off at uni doing some incredible things around music. But I just think her body and her head needs it more than mine does. And just recently, we ended up sharing a bed together. And I was like, what are you doing? She said, I'm playing Gilmore Girls. She said, I'm not listening to it, but it just has to be in the background for me to go to sleep. I was like, you are messing. How can I sleep with that on?
But yeah, my daughter is the same. And I think someone told me there's a whole thing around, one of the first senses is sound.
Yeah.
And they hear the heartbeats, they hear the blood, and that the heartbeat is that natural rhythm is very calming, which is why things like going for a run, which is at a similar speed.
And playing music while you run.
Is calming. So there's loads of things. So it will be definitely that. But yeah, it's interesting.
But also that bit you said about cutting out the other sounds. Because what happens, like when we were cavemen and cavewomen, we would still have a little bit of an ear to what the sounds were outside. So as a tribe, we would all go to sleep at different times on purpose because we'd all want to be in that N2, that light sleep, at different times. So there would always be somebody with an ear out for a snake or I don't know, you wouldn't hear a spider, would you? But a rat.
You'd hear a really big spider in Australia.
Yes, yeah.
It's interesting. I hear lots of little bits. Someone sort of said that back in caveman days, being ADHD was really useful.
Yes.
Because while everyone's listening to a story, you're the person going, what was that noise? It's great until you try and sleep and you're still going, what's that noise? And that's where things like the fan, Gilmore, it's setting a consistent soundscape that is predictable, that you know where it's going to go. And it's the same with me and my music. Yeah. It's something predictable that I didn't hear that noise outside.
Yes. Or the radiator gurgling or
my mum downstairs doing something, making the packed lunches so you can get out to school in 10 minutes. All those sorts of things. It's blocking it all out and just setting which comes back to again, certainty of my environment is exactly how I want it. Yes. And I can now relax. Yeah.
And it's different for everybody. So you relax because you've got certainty in your environment. So sometimes I work with people that are feeling hugely anxious, and that idea of no longer sleeping in the same bedroom as their parents will be difficult, or with their siblings, and going on their first school trip, or just sleeping in a bedroom on their own for the first time. So I would say, well, what makes you feel like you feel safe and secure? And for one guy I worked with recently, he said, actually, hearing my dad practice the piano downstairs was lovely. I knew he was there, but he didn't need to be with me. So, and I said, but he doesn't play the piano all night long. And he goes, no, I don't need it. I just need it to feel secure that he's there, and then I can go to sleep. So it is hugely different for everybody on what's important to you. So if it's about blocking stuff out, that bit's important to you. If it's about getting your brain to think differently, then playing a constant thing that's useful to you, or so it depends on who you are. I don't ever like to give too many blanket, like, you need to do it this way.
Yeah, no, I think I like, there's an Alexa advert and other home assistants are available.
You don't need Jill at home. No.
But I think it was a girl moving out. And it was the same sort of thing. She'd be at home, whatever she was doing, she'd hear her dad's music. And then she went to university and she's obviously feeling like, I'm nowhere near home. I'm not at home. Safe. And then she just put on, Alexa, put on dad's playlist. And it was all the music. Yeah. And just that sense of belonging and home connection and happiness.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when you talk about making sprays for your pillows. I could not think of anything worse. I just want the right material. It's got a right material. Yeah. To me, it's a duck down duvet because it's nice and heavy. I probably would love a weighted blanket, but I'm not going to try it because I'll get addicted.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm going to try and restrain from that.
Yeah.
Nothing smells. No cat poos from the downstairs coming up through the house. But it's about almost like nothing coming in, nothing invading from me. And I think for a lot of people, it's probably the same.
Yeah. You just need to find out what works for you. Some top athletes really struggle with sleep when they're taking part in competitions because they'll go to strange places and it will be completely different, and therefore their sleep is quite hard. And yet they're now top athletes are beginning to realise, actually, getting good sleep might be my hidden weapon that means I succeed more than the other person or the other team. So I think it's Liverpool are using a sleep scientist person at the moment. We know that the cyclists did. So when they do the Tour de France, they actually take their own sleep pods so that are we doing well at the cycling? We're doing pretty well, I think, aren't we? And the rowing team recently have used a guy called Nick Littlehales, I think, one of my colleagues, and they have all learnt to nap because they know it's a secret weapon. So, yeah, there is an advantage, though, of knowing what to do at night. So what do you need in your sleep station to make it work? So, yeah, getting the right pillows for you, making sure you always use the same pillows, making sure you've got your kit with you that's useful. Some people like certain smells, though. So, again, one pillow spray might work for one person and the next one won't. You can't just use anything. Air crew often take stuff with them, and it might be a certain smell from home that they like, a certain perfume or whatever. Yeah, I always remember my mum's perfume. I always think that's quite a comforting thing to smell.
So I travel with two things. I have a pillow, which is better for posture. Yes. So it goes in front of me. So when I'm sleeping on my side, I'm not kind of squishing myself too much. Clever. The other thing is an old T-shirt. And part of the reason, because I like my darkness, I can't control that in hotel rooms.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And they might have really bad curtains, or I might be opposite something with this big spot. Whatever it is, I have no control. But what the T-shirt, and it really isn't old, it's really soft.
Yeah.
So I can put it over my face and make my room pitch black, but it's not...
Like an eye mask that's just annoying.
But again, eye mask, exactly that. Annoying. Something strapped to my head.
Yes.
Something,
It's too intense.
Too intense. Yeah. And also I can feel it on my eyelashes because I've got quite long eyelashes. So that's annoying. So lots of, whereas that, it's kind of like I can just drop it on my face. It's really soft and not noticeable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I travel to my hotels with.
Yeah. And that fits in really nicely with that bit about routine. So some top athletes go, well, I just keep to my same routine. You know, I will take some products that suit me, that are a race, but I'll always do things in a certain order because that bit you said before, having that routine, the brain gets that sinking in and it helps. So, yeah. So somebody said the other day, we need to work like a top athlete or something, and then we get our best results. I don't think that's always the case, but I think it's useful, isn't it, to see what people that are top athletes do that we can borrow from.
I think we do that, but interesting. I think sleep has never been on people's minds. But we talk about what do you have for breakfast? You need to have a power breakfast. We talk about the nutrition going in terms of getting the most effective time and loads of things like that we do. But I think sleep is probably going to be the next thing and I'm going to ask you to come back again because we've talked about getting to sleep. And as you mentioned, what about those who wake up? But we haven't got time to talk about that today. So I'm going to invite you back and we'll do that one as well.
Okay.
Because my wife, she sleeps like 4 hours at a time and has a couple of hours awake.
Yeah.
But as you said, sleeping for 8 hours is kind of a made up thing.
Myth, yeah.
And I think 120 years ago, we used to sleep in 4 hour blocks, apparently. And we used to wake up.
The 2 o'clock wake up between 1 and 3, actually. But
it's exactly what my wife does. Yeah. But my wife would like to. So I get to ask you next time you're on.
Definitely.
How do we avoid that?
Yeah. Well, we can't avoid it. So people that say they do wake up. They just don't know it. They fall back to sleep too quickly.
Yes.
So it's knowing how to fall back to sleep that's the important bit. But we can talk loads more.
We can. And I get to talk a bit after this, but I'm going to wrap up.
Yes.
So really thank you for coming today. Really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been great.
I'm not going to be trying to think about this when I fall asleep tonight.
No, I don't.
Try not to.
Yeah.
And as always, you are going to find Jill's contact details in the show notes. And you can also find out all the work Jill does. And you'll find the show notes, as always, wherever you listen to the podcast or on our website. So thank you for listening. If you are listening through a platform that allows you to review the podcast or give a rating, please give it a review or a 5-star rating and let others know what you think. And if you want to get in touch, let us know your thoughts, suggest topics or anything else, please send a message to social media, via social media, or send an email to hello@thesencast.com. The Sencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. And I've also told you about all our products, but B Squared, we've been helping schools since 1997. We started breaking down the curriculum into smaller steps before P-levels even existed. And we always use technology to help reduce teacher workload, improve outcomes for pupils, to improve the impact, effectiveness, and efficiency of schools. And we've introduced AI into our software in 2023, again, to reduce that teacher workload even more. Connecting Steps, our assessment software, is our biggest product. It can be used with a wide range of students, from the most complex to young people working towards independence, and also for every pupil in primary schools. But don't forget, Eversense, our evidence for learning and parental communication tool, this podcast, and also Sencast sessions, our CPD around SEND. All of our products are here to help schools, to help their students, and to improve outcomes. So if you want to find out more about what we do, please use the link in the show notes to book a meeting with me, and I will take you through our products and how they can help you. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sencast, which is goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me, but sleep well as well.
Night, everyone.
Good night.